Dawson Rider review.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for the Power Rangers Beast Morphers clip show Making Bad, which is essentially part 2 or part 1.5 of the Dino Team Up. And this was also kind of a surprise. I talked about in last episode's review and the Dino Team Up reviews how when the international airings this took me by surprise again of how they decided to make use of one of the clip shows and incorporate it into the team up and just its placement too. Because it was funny when this aired in the international airings after the Dino Charge part 1, everyone was like gearing up thinking, oh, Jason's gonna be back today, it's the main team up. And then we did this episode, which kind of, again, took us by surprise. And I'm kind of curious for those of you that avoided spoilers and too much information and are going into this clean, how surprised you were or not. But basically, one of the coolest things they did this season was they took our 2 clip shows, and if you guys know, ever since Samurai, every season we have 2 clip shows, Halloween and Christmas, and we did that last season as well for Beast Morphers. However, for season 2, we took those clip shows and or those special episodes, and we did the Pan Global Games episode, which is basically a normal episode, and then this one, which was a clip show, but they incorporated it into the Dino Team Up storyline. And I do want to give them props for that. Not only am I happy that they finally broke the forced tradition of the holiday specials, but that they used it for something cool, and I think that's really awesome, and I like what they did here. Now, the elephant in the room and the main problem with this episode is obviously the voices. For like 90% of the voices from the clips they used for the villains, they were Dino Thunder Kid, like, "Hey lady, you're my sister, Corone." And it was so awkward. And there was lots of information that came out during the international airings about like, oh, the voice clips weren't usable, you know, all this technical stuff and reasons why they couldn't use it. But honestly, I feel like just taking your phone and putting Netflix up and then recording the audio off your phone of the actual episode would have sounded better. Like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, I get it, I'm not a professional or anything. I know that there's obviously reasons and stuff, but they managed to pull it off for that Shattered Grid trailer. And they said that they also faced the same problem with the voices in the Shattered Grid trailer, and then they actually had to re-record dialogue with JDF and almost said ASJ, Amy Jo Johnson, for that. But they also managed to pull it off. There was clips from Samurai, there was clips from SPD, there was clips from In Space. So again, I'm not an expert, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but if they could pull that off for the comic trailer, how could they not somehow pull it off for this somehow? And honestly, I almost would have rather them only used clips that they could. Like, you know, okay, we want to use an astronomer clip. Well, none of it's usable. Okay, what's the next villain? What do we have that works? Or just kind of make it like a montage, put music over it. It was just awkward, because this was like really cool. It's like, oh, we're getting to see these clips from more obscure seasons, and then the voices were so off. Or just have Jeffrey Perazzo voice all of them. The point is, that's the main negative of this episode, and I feel that there was ways they could have made it better, or at least made the voices sound closer. I don't want to sound too high maintenance about it, but that was the only awful thing about this episode, for me. Other than that, I thought it was surprisingly cool. The premise of it, you know, still doing a clip show, but basically they're using the machine from last week where they revived Sledge & Company, but they're like, okay, we can only do one more in the new Geno randomizer, so we gotta go through villain history and pick and choose who we're gonna, well, you know, pick and choose. And we gotta only pick one. And so that was a cool premise for it. You're using the villain chest from last week to do a clip show. The Rangers were off doing something else, but that really wasn't the main focus of this episode. I will talk about something with that here in a second though. But I thought it was a cool premise, a cool way to extend the Dino Team Up into multiple parts, and a cool way of not forcing a holiday special when you don't need it and giving it a special. And then they obviously wound up choosing Goldar because that's how they ended up doing Neo Goldar, was it basically enhanced him. And then Goldar's voice didn't sound the same at all. I don't know if they could have gotten Kerrigan back, or I don't know. That's another one where I feel like Rita, Goldar, and Zed's voices seem so memorable that it's just hard to get somebody that sounds so different. So that it kind of sucks that we couldn't get that back. And it didn't feel like Goldar at all because of that. But that being said, I liked this idea. I was personally hoping before this that it was just going to be another member of Goldar's race. I thought that was kind of a cool expansion. But I liked this explanation. I just wish it would have sounded and felt more like Goldar. And then he like took Sledge out right away, which was kind of crazy. But this was not perfect, but I thought it was some cool ideas. Now, as far as the Rangers, like I said, they were off doing something else during this episode, but the main focal point was this clip show. But the thing I wanted to mention with the Rangers was I mentioned in the Finders Keepers review how it was weird that the Dino Charge team didn't stick around. And I feel like, you know, they obviously didn't want to have to pay them for another episode. Not to mention this episode was done out of order. Like, you know, it was episode 20 or 21 in production order, even though it's airing episode 12 or whatever. So they probably didn't have that cast around for this. Maybe. I'm going to assume, you know, because they probably filmed it out of order. It's different production order. So that's probably why they wouldn't have the Dino Charge cast or anything like that in this episode, outside of the fact that they'd probably want to save money by not paying them. That being said, it would have been nice if the cast either stuck around and they said, oh, the Dino Charge cast is here, but they're off doing something else that's going to contribute to the team up, just to not make it feel so disconnected. But there is a reason for it. It's a little bit of a nitpick, but I thought I'd mention it. But overall, I thought this was a very imperfect episode that I wish they would have figured out a better solution for the voices. But that being said, I really do appreciate that they not only stopped doing the forced specials this year, but wound up using it for something cool, and I think this was a nice little treat. But what did you guys think of this clip show? Did the voices bother you too much? Do you like the way they used this to sort of extend the Dino team up? Let me know in the comments as usual. Until next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.